Ah crap, here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking, and here we find ourselves at the end of Series 2. Not nearly as long as Series 1, but I'm pretty sure writing these scripts aged me 10 years, and it's not gonna get any easier with this one. So let's just get right to it and give it everything we've got. This is my review of Zero Escape, Zero Time Dilemma. As I mentioned previously, the development of this game was indefinitely put on hold due to the poor reception of the previous installments in Japan until a grassroots movement by fans of the series convinced Chunsoft to greenlight the final installment and resume development. The entire purpose of this game was to resolve all remaining plot threads in the series and wrap everything up, so the cancellation of this game was like cancelling a series before the planned final season. Nice job, Chunsoft. Released in 2016 on the 3DS, PS Vita, and Steam, and PlayStation 4 with slight improvements in 2017, the version I played, Zero Time Dilemma has much in common with the previous installments, but forgoes much of the humor and comedy to focus more on the horror and emotional beats, which I think was a smart idea. For a finale, one final beat to end everything, you want every moment to be impactful and resonant, and they mostly succeeded. Emphasis on mostly. Zero Time Dilemma is also a visual novel with escape room sections, but my god are the escape rooms practically an afterthought in this game. I'll explain more later, but they are almost entirely superfluous to the plot, and speaking of plot, it's time we talk about the story. The story begins with our delightful cast of characters being awoken by the 17th century anachronism, Zero the Second. See, I told you I knew the answer to that question last time. Also, I'd like to bring attention to Zero the Second's cool voice.
You detest me, I suppose? You are welcome to kill me now if you wish. It should be easy if you put your mind to it.
Wish I could talk like that. As Zeros are wont to do, he wants to play a game. The biggest difference this time around, though, is that there is no nonary game to be found. Instead, the participants are forced to participate in the decision game, which is pretty self-explanatory. There will be several instances throughout the game in which a character will be forced to make a choice that leads to different branching timelines. And by far, my favorite example of this is at the very beginning of the game, where you can legit beat the game in like 10 minutes if you guess the outcome of a coin flip correctly. It can happen so early on that you'll definitely forget about it within a few hours of gameplay. I wonder if that was intentional. Wink! If you fail the coin flip, everyone passes out and awakens, having been split into 3 groups. And let's meet these groupies. Representing C-Team, aka the Awkward Lovers and their third-wheeling friend, the leader of C-Team and de facto main character despite being the least interesting member of his own team, Carlos! The woman we cannot leave behind no matter where we go or when we are, and I highly suggest you go watch my 999 video before going any farther to learn more about this Machiavellian Akane! And the guy who spends most of the game being an emo asshole, and seeing as how he virtuously saved Akane's life and his only reward for doing so was being fucking ghosted for a year, I can see why. Junpei! Representing D-Team, aka the Bloodline, the pacifistic nurse, D-Team leader, and you guessed it, cute cinnamon roll of this game. I'm really in the mood for cinnamon after this. Diana! You should probably go watch my video on Virtue's Last Reward before progressing any further, because the pure fact this guy is here is a spoiler for that game, so leave while you still can. Sigma! And I didn't know it was possible for her to look more of a hipster, but she, like life and dinosaurs, found a way. Phi! And representing Q-Team, aka a shit sandwich being eaten by the great mighty Pooh in the middle of a shit tsunami, the Q-Team leader who has a problem staying ahead of his other teammates, but seriously, that's what happens when you put a helmet child in charge of a team of fucking pigeons. Q! The biggest tool in the series was probably the smallest tool in the series, Eric! And just the butt-fucking worst character you ever did see in the conclusion of the Rule 34 Waiting to Happen trilogy, Mira! Oh, that one hurt. But you think I'm joking about the Rule 34 thing, but the series creator is an outspoken fan of the rule and intentionally designed characters like Lotus, Alice, Clover, and Mira to encourage fans to draw Rule 34 art. In fact, he's such a fan of it that he created a promotional game for Virtue's Last Reward that consists only of opening doors to see Clover in outfits that get more revealing as they go on.
Am I dead yet?
Now, I'm not one to take the moral high ground and say Rule 34 art is bad, but when I first meet a character as a little girl, I can't see them portrayed in a sexual way without feeling gross. That's one of the many reasons why the CW's Powerpuff Girls didn't work. Anyway, the core of the decision game is built on two different rules. 1. The goal of the game is to escape through the X door by collecting 6 X passes, and one is revealed every time someone dies. 2. Every 90 minutes, they will be injected with a chemical that will knock them out and wipe their memories of everything that just happened. Right off the bat, the decision game is already more brutal than both versions of the Notary game. The Ambidex game was the only other one that also included death, but the participants could easily avoid it, and when they didn't, the victim was just euthanized. Now, 6 people have to die to end the game, and it's always in brutal ways like poisoning, bludgeoning, stabbing, shooting, impaling, starving, and more really fun things. So really, Zero Time Dilemma is you just farting around this Nevada test site seeing how many different ways these 9 characters can die in horrific and grotesque ways. In fact, most of the decisions you'll have to make in the decision game will directly or indirectly lead to a death or several deaths, so you feel wholly responsible for it. Although some decisions are pure bullshit, like when you have to get a very specific dice roll in order to escape being turned into Swiss cheese. Speaking of pure bullshit, that's the perfect way to describe this game's flowcharts. Yes, flowcharts. Plural. Each team has their own individual flowchart that feeds into an overarching flowchart of the entire game's events. However, this game uses the fact that the characters lose their memories when injected to memento this game to shit and have everything take place at different times and in different timelines. So you could jump from C team in timeline 1 to D team in timeline 3 and have no idea what happened. With this added layer of confusion, you'd think maybe they'd tone down on the amount of endings, but nope! Someone clearly got in touch with Ty Dillinger because the amount of endings has increased from 22 to 32! 23 of them are game overs, 2 are bonuses, and only 7 are actually counted as endings. 1 C-team ending, 2 endings for D-team and Q-team, and 2 endings that involve all 3. But to get those endings, you have to go through the escape rooms, and as I said earlier, they mostly don't matter and only serve as precursors to a decision or opportunities for lore drops and world building, which is really the purpose of this whole game. Much like the escape rooms, a lot of the required endings don't do much aside from adding some lore and world building, so I can actually break them down individually. If you want to remain blind before you play it for yourself or watch a playthrough, skip to this timecode. In C-End, Carlos, Akane, and Junpei, who have the ability to teleport their consciousness through timelines with a power known as Shift, jumped to a different timeline in order to meet Zero, who reveals himself to be Brother, the leader of Free the Soul and the one who started the Radical 6 outbreak in order to have a 75% chance of killing someone he expected might end up killing more people in the future than the virus would kill. They then shift to another timeline, and Akane is determined to create the AB Project, leading to the events of Virtue's Last Reward. In D-End 1, Phi attempts to blow a hole in a different part of the facility to escape, but Zero counters that by placing the passed out Q team within the blast radius. Sigma attempts to disable the bomb, but fails, which results in him losing his eye and arms. In retribution, Mira injects Phi with the Radical 6 virus, and Diana takes both Sigma and Phi out of the building. This directly leads to the events of Virtue's Last Reward, and shows how Sigma got his fake arms and reveals Phi is Radical 6's Patient Zero. In D-End 2, Sigma and Diana, having been left behind in the facility, use a transporter to transport copies of themselves to another timeline. They survive on the facility's food supply and bond until Diana eventually gives birth to twins, a boy and a girl. Sigma names the girl Phi, after the character with the same name, and Diana names the boy Delta, keeping the Greek theme and using her initial instead. So yes, Phi is Sigma's daughter and is named after herself. I told you their names meant something, didn't I? Anyway, copies of the kids are placed into the transporter and sent into the past. In Q-End 1, the ending with the best name, Mira reveals herself to be the serial killer known as the Heart Ripper. She has an inability to understand emotions and became obsessed with the human heart as a result. She takes Q and leaves the facility. In Q-End 2, there's a lot of explaining to do. So Mira's dead and Eric is holding Q at gunpoint, believing he did it. Q takes off his helmet to reveal that it is actually his head and he is a robot. This is revealed in a game over sequence. Anyway, he then reveals Zero's identity as Delta, a wheelchair-bound man believed to be deaf, blind, and mute who has been a member of Q-Team the whole time. Eric says his name is supposed to be Q, and the robot we believed to be Q is actually named Sean. Delta stands up and reveals that he's a special type of Esper who has been using mind hack abilities to watch everyone and influence their choices. Basically, you play as Delta the whole game without knowing it until that point. He also explains that he has very complex motivations for his actions, including but not limited to ensuring he's born and ensuring he gets his powers. CQD End 1 is when you win the coin flip, and in CQD End 2, the true ending of the game, everyone gathers all the forced quit codes across different timelines and uses them to win the game. Then, everyone shifts their consciousness to the timeline where Carlos won the coin toss and was let go. Delta reveals that this was the plan all along, and now everyone is determined to take down the terrorist he foresees will kill 8 billion people, and they have the shift power to do it. In summary, this whole game was set up by Delta. He is Zero the Second, a participant in the game, the son of Sigma and Diana, the brother of Phi, and the brother leading Free the Soul. He set up the decision game to ensure that he was born and transported, that a timeline still exists that leads to the events of Virtue's Last Reward, and to ensure that a timeline exists where the terrorist threat is stopped without needing to release Radical 6. Good lord, why did I decide to review these games? Anyway, I really enjoyed this game as a whole. I loved how it set out to tie up any loose ends and answer all the questions fans had been left with. Often writers will prefer to leave things vague as they believe their answer won't be satisfying enough to consumers, but I find any concrete answer to be more satisfying than a non-answer. The characters on C and D team are solid, Carlos really grew on me over time, and Diana is just precious, but Q team just sucks across the board. Eric is annoying and whiny, Mira is an actual serial killer and equally as annoying, and Sean is just kinda there. I thought Delta was a solid antagonistic force, and I like how it's left up to the player whether or not you think Delta is a redeemable man. However, I absolutely cannot forgive the atrocious timeline jumping in this game. But that's not even my main problem. My problem is that the game gives you no indication on what game overs unlock what paths, so you will constantly have to go back and repeat the same parts just to check if anything new opened up.
Oh my god, I am so bored!
If they had made this an easier or less tedious process, this game would be an easy 8 or 9. But as is, I have to go with a 7 out of 10. Great game hampered by annoying gameplay choices and a lack of focus on the escape rooms that made previous installments fun. This is your captain speaking, and next time, we go to a place where fantasy and fun come to life. And I hope to see you there.